everybody. So today we're going to be doing some yoga. I'm going to be taking you through some Bikram hot yoga poses. Obviously not the same because we're not in a heated room, but the stretches are still good nonetheless. I'll be taking you through each pose just to show you how to do it correctly so that when you go to do it yourself, you're getting the most out of the stretch and you're not hurting yourself. And just remember, if you can't do the pose perfectly like it shows in a picture, that's not the point of yoga, okay? The point of yoga is to take your body to the edge of that stretch and push through to a new edge. And if you continue to take yourself to the edge of that stretch every time, you're guaranteed to see an improvement in that flexibility. So let's get started. All right, so for our first pose, we're going to be doing half moon pose. So we'll start off by bringing our feet and our legs together and then interlocking our fingers, releasing that index and thumb finger, so almost like we're making little finger guns. Then we're going to lift our arms up above our head. Our biceps should be right around our ears. Then we're going to squeeze our butt and legs, and we're going to reach up with our arms so our biceps are squeezing our ears, and then we're going to lean over to the right, pushing that left hip out. You want to make sure that your chest is staying up towards the ceiling. You're not turning inward. You just want to make sure that you're pushing over to the side as much as you can and push back up to the center. Whew. Take your breath, relax for a moment. Then we're going to squeeze that butt and reach back up and push. Pushing that hip out, last couple seconds, and up. So for all of these poses, I like to do them 2 times, and I like to hold them for at least 8 seconds on each side, and really pushing myself to the edge of that stretch in like the last 2 seconds, just so that I know I'm getting as much as I can out of that pose. Awesome. Well, on to the next. All right, so for our next pose, we're going to be doing awkward pose. So the way that awkward pose works is we're going to put our feet about shoulder width apart. We're going to bring our knees down in together. Reach your arms out in front of you. Make sure you're not holding them up too high. Your shoulders are up against your neck. You want them nice and relaxed. Nice long neck, nice long arms. Then next we're going to raise up onto the balls of our feet and slowly seat down into a chair. You want to go just low enough so that your thighs are parallel with the floor. Nice straight back, nice long arms, and push up. Awesome. So now I'm just going to do that from the side for you so you can see how much I'm sitting down into the pose. So once again, feet shoulder width apart. Bring those knees together. Put those arms out. Make sure those shoulders aren't tensed up. Nice and relaxed. Nice long neck. Nice straight back. Raise up on the balls of those feet and sit, sit, sit until those legs are parallel with the ground. And we're just going to hold that for a few moments. Back straight, neck tall, and lift up. And that is awkward pose. All right, so this next pose we're going to be doing is eagle pose. It's a little difficult if you're not very flexible, so there are a couple things we can do to adjust it for you if you're not up to speed yet. So what we'll start off with is doing the arms. So we're going to take our left hand, place it on our right shoulder, take our right arm, and we're just going to sneak it right underneath that left elbow, and then you're going to try and get your palms together. If you can't do that, you're more than welcome to just leave your hands back to back. The whole goal is just to stretch as much as you can, so do as much as your body tells you that you can do. Once we've got our arms all done, we'll then move on to our legs. We're going to take our right leg and just wrap it around our left. And once again, if that's not something you can do, if you can't get that leg all the way around to hook behind, you're more than welcome to just let it rest on top of your left leg. You'll still get the stabilizer muscles usage out of this stretch. So once again, let's get nice and wrapped up, get our palms together, hook our leg behind that calf. See, my toes are hooked right behind there. And we're going to make sure that our knees and elbows are in a straight line. And then we're going to sit back, almost like a squat, into this pose, making sure we're keeping our back straight, neck long, Arms and knees in line and back up. Ah! It's hard to do them slow and talk at the same time. Anyways, I'll do the other side just so you can see it from the side how we're sitting into that stretch. So this time we're going to take our right hand and put it on our left shoulder. Going to take our left arm and wrap it around that right elbow. Bring those palms together. We're going to lift up our left leg and just wrap it around our right. Make sure we're hooking that toe behind that calf. Get those elbows and knees in line, and then we're just going to sit, making sure we're keeping a nice straight back, nice long neck, and up. Whew. And that is eagle pose. So the next pose that we're going to be doing is standing head to knee. So once again, there's going to be a lot of different levels of flexibility within this exercise. So go to the point that you feel like your body is telling you to stop. If it's starting to hurt or become painful or you can't keep your balance, then we're not doing ourselves any favors in completing the stretch. So like I said, at any point, stop when you feel like your body is doing as much as it can. So the way that we'll start this exercise is we're going to lift up our right leg. You want to make sure this left knee is locked. You want a nice strong base so that you're not wiggling around all over the place, especially for this exercise. Then what we're going to do is just crawl our fingers down our foot and hook and clasp those fingers underneath the foot. Once again, if this is not a place that you can get to, if you can only reach and pull your knee up, then pull the knee up and balance here. If this is the extent of your stretch, that's totally okay. Just make sure that you're always working to get a little bit more out of the stretch, moving a little bit further down that foot. If you can get your fingers hooked under your foot, what you're going to do next is then kick forward, pushing against those feet until that knee can be nice and straight. Once again, if you can only get partially forward, if that's the end of the stretch for you, just make sure you're kicking through the entire stretch. So after you get your legs all stretched out and the knee is straight, you'll then bend your elbows forward and attempt to place your forehead onto your knee. So I'll just show you here, kicking out, elbows down, head to knee. And then we're just going to put that foot back down and we'll do it from the other side. All right. We're just going to climb down and then kick out, knee straight, elbows bent, forehead to knee. Awesome. And that is standing head to knee. All right, so the next pose we're going to be doing is going to be standing bow pose. So the way I like to start this stretch is at one end of my mat, and let's say we'll start with the left leg. So I'm going to step the left leg forward, and this is going to be my base. So we're going to make sure that this knee is locked nice and tight, and we're just going to come up on the ball of the foot of our right foot. Next, we'll take our left hand and reach it straight up. Make sure it's up against that ear, and then we're just going to take this back hand, this back foot, grab the inside of our right foot, so back inside where the arch is. You shouldn't be grabbing it from the outside. We want to make sure we're grabbing it from the inside of the foot. Then the next step is we're going to slowly lean forward. Now, as we're leaning forward, we want to make sure that the bicep stays right next to the ear and we're moving this upper part of our body as one piece. And you want to make sure also that you're kicking against this back hand. So you want to be kicking, almost trying to take your foot out of that hand, and that tension is going to create greater stability for you. If you're not kicking back and you're just trying to hold on to this hand, it's going to be very wobbly. So like I said, make sure you're kicking into that hand. We're moving the upper body and the arm as one piece, and then we're slowly going to lean forward, hinging at our left hip. Now when we do that, the goal is going to be to get the foot up over the head. So if you're seeing it in the mirror, you'll see what I mean. I'll show you from the front angle in just a few moments when we do the other foot. So I'm all set, foot in hand, and I'm going to start to kick and lean. And then once we get parallel, we're just going to hold that for as long as we can, hopefully 8 seconds, and then we'll switch to the other foot. So I'll just show you from head on here. I'm going to step forward, ball of my foot, right arm up by my bicep, turn my left hand in and grab the inside of my left foot, and then I'm just going to lean, kick, and you see how that foot is coming up right over the back of my head? That's what you want to see in the mirror, and then we're just going to come back up, and that is standing bow pose. So for our next pose, it's going to be the standing stick pose. So I like to start this one the same way that we started the standing bow pose. We're going to take a nice big step to the middle of our mat with our left foot, locking that knee, making sure it's nice and tight. Then we're going to interlock our fingers, doing the little finger guns that we did before. We're going to lift those arms up to our head, making sure those biceps are right around our ears. We're on the ball of our back foot, and then we're just going to reach up with our arms and squeeze, and we're going to hinge on this left hip, keeping that arm straight, foot straight until we're parallel with the ground, and then we're going to come back. Now, when you're doing that, you want to make sure that your head isn't behind your arms, it's not hanging down in front. We want to make sure that those ears are right on those biceps, and we're just trying to get as flat and parallel as we can. So we're going to do the same thing with our right leg. So I'm going to step halfway forward, locking that knee, nice tight base, ball of my back foot, interlocking those fingers, bringing them up by my ears, and then I'm just going to reach up and hinge until I'm parallel with the floor, and you're going to want to hold this for 8 seconds if you can, keeping that foot straight, arms straight, and back up. And that was standing stick pose. So our next pose is going to be standing forehead to floor pose. I haven't perfected this one yet either, so bear with me while we do what we can. I like to start on one end of my mat and just take a nice big step over. So your feet are going to be a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Then what we're going to do is we're going to reach our arms out to the side. Make sure those hips are tucked under. We're not leaning forward. Hips are nice and tucked. Got those arms straight out. Then we're just going to start to hinge forward at our hips, keeping that head up, arms up, making sure the last thing to fall is the head. Now from here, if you can grab the outside of your feet, that's great. If you can't, then what I would just recommend is reaching down towards the center as low as you can go and get as deep into the stretch as possible. But for those of you who can't reach the outsides of your feet, the next step of the pose is to begin pulling your head forward with your elbows. So we're just bending those elbows, trying to pull our head forward, and at the end of the stretch, if you can get it that way, your forehead will be resting on your mat. I'm not quite there yet, but I'll show it to you from the side as well, just so you can see. Take a nice big step over, arms out, hips tucked, neck long, and we're just going to start hinging at the hips, down, down, down. Grab those feet, and then pull forward, pull, 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 and back up. And that was standing forehead to floor pose. So the next pose that we're going to be doing is triangle pose with optional birds of paradise pose at the end. It's not in the traditional hot yoga poses, but I've just discovered it and started doing it, and it's one of my new favorites, so I'm going to throw it in anyway. Totally optional. If you want to try it, go for it. If not, no big deal. So, to start off our triangle pose, I like to start off on one end of my mat again and take a nice big step over. So once again, they're going to be wider than shoulder width apart. You're going to keep your back foot here parallel to the edge of your mat, and we're just going to pivot and point this right foot forward. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring our arms out, make sure they're stretching away from our body. We're not just holding them out limp. Every piece of your body should be a part of this stretch. So we're going to be stretching in both directions, and we're going to bend that front knee forward until we get this nice 90-degree angle. You want to make sure that when you're doing it that your knee doesn't come in front of your toes. So we're just going to get a nice deep stretch here. Keep our chest open. And then we're just going to lean forward. You're going to be placing your left fingers in front of that left toe. And you want to make sure as well that your chest is staying open, your shoulders staying back, and this arm is pointing straight up. You don't want it to be kind of coming forward, laying back. You want it to be nice and straight, and we're stretching here. So for anyone who doesn't want to do Birds of Paradise, this is it for the pose. Whenever you're done, you'll come back up, straighten that leg, pivot it back in, and step together. Now, I'll show you on the other side the Birds of Paradise that I like to end the stretch with, but once again, totally optional. So we're going to take a nice big step outward. Arms are out straight, we pivot. We're going to do a nice bend, get that 90-degree angle, pivot those arms. Now for the Birds of Paradise option, we're going to start by taking this right hand and reaching it back underneath our thigh, trying to touch the back of our right hip. Then you're going to take this left hand, reach it behind you, interlock your fingers, and next we're going to start to inch this back foot towards the middle of our mat. And then what we're going to want to do is stand up. All right. Oh. And then from here, if you can, we're going to extend this foot, Bird of Paradise. I can only do it for a couple seconds without falling, but let me kind of show you from the back the way that the hands get clasped, just so that you can see that as well. Reach that arm back, take this hand, reach it around, clasp, scoot that foot in, and then we're just gonna lift up and extend. Nice. And that, Birds of Paradise, but more importantly, triangle pose. So our next pose is going to be standing separate head to knee pose. So once again, we're going to start off on one end of our mat, take a nice big step over. Then we're just going to pivot to the side, keeping this back foot parallel, this foot forward. Then we're going to lock our hands together, making sure we're doing our little finger guns, putting those up above our head. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hinge forward at the hips, leaning towards this toe, and the goal is going to be to get your fingers to land right in front of your foot here and your forehead to be on your knee while the leg is straight. Once again, we're doing as much as our bodies will allow us. So if you can't touch all the way to the floor, touch wherever on your body is the furthest that you can lean, and just make sure that you're pushing yourself. Once again, you don't have to do the perfect pose, you just have to strive for it every time. So like I said, we're going to interlock those fingers, finger guns up, arms straight, we're turning towards that foot, and we're just going to hinge forward, bam. So I got those fingers in front of that toe. Now what I want to do is I'm going to bring this knee, bend it, and bring it to my forehead. And throughout the stretch, the whole goal is to just push that forehead down and that knee straight. Whew. Then we'll lift back up. Whew. That one's hard. So now we'll just swap over, pivot to the other side. We're going to interlock our fingers with our finger guns. Biceps up around our ears, reaching up and forward. And then we're just going to hinge. All right, then we're bringing that knee to our forehead. We're just trying to push. Try and get that knee straight. Whew. Oh. And that is standing separate knee to forehead pose. So the next pose that we're going to do is tree pose. So this is going to be like a one-legged standing balancing pose. So we're going to start with our left foot It's going to be the base, so we're just going to go ahead and lock this knee, nice strong base, and then we're going to take our left foot, and what we're going to try to do is lift this foot up and actually tuck it right in the crease where your leg and your hip meet, and you kind of just want to stand right there, put your hands into prayer, right in the middle of your body, stand nice and tall, and balance here. So this is tree pose. Now, if you can't get your foot all the way up here, you have some bad knees, just can't do it, the next best thing to do is going to be flamingo pose instead of tree pose. And we're just going to bring that foot up and place it flat on the inside of our thigh. Bring those hands to prayer and balance. Now, there's a second part of tree pose that's called the toe stand. If you feel good in your tree pose, nice and strong, balancing is easy, this is like the next level. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Once again, we're going to bring this foot up into tree pose. Come here to pray. All right. For the next part, we're going to reach our hands forward. So just lean forward, touch the ground, and then we're going to bend down so we're balancing on this one foot. So then the next goal is to take our fingers off the ground, bring them back to prayer, and stand on one toe. All right. Put our fingers back down, stand it back up, release the leg. And we'll do that for both legs. So same thing, nice strong leg here. Bring this foot in, bring to prayer. If you want to do the toe stand, I'm not as good on this side, then we can come to prayer here. Awesome. And that was tree pose or flamingo pose and toe stand. Awesome. So our next pose is probably everyone's favorite pose. It's Savasana or corpse pose, dead body pose. Pretty self-explanatory. So what we're going to do is lay down flat on our mat and give thanks to all the work our body has put in so far. If you want to keep your hands down against the floor, that's going to be recharging, receiving. And then, or you can leave your hands up, and that's going to be giving. And we're just going to relax here, focus on our breath. We've done good so far. We're about halfway through. So let's take a deep breath in and out. On these breaths, on the inhale as much as you can. And on these exhales, make sure we're using our core to push all of that air out of our lungs, really empty those lungs. So we'll do a couple more deep breaths and in and out. In and out. Feel free to take as much time here as you need, and I'll meet you for the next pose. So the next pose we're going to be doing is called wind removing pose. So from our Savasana, where we're laying on our back, what we're going to do is we're going to pull this left leg up towards our chest, and then what you're trying to do is grab the top of your knee and interlace those fingers. Once again, if you can't reach the top of your knee, just make sure you're grabbing as far as you can, wherever you can reach, and you're trying to pull this leg towards your chest. So once we've got those fingers interlaced, what we're going to want to do is pull this leg over to the left of our body around the outside of our rib cage, and we're just going to pull down. Make sure we're keeping this bottom foot flexed, and that's going to help make sure you keep this hip on the floor and that it doesn't come up off the ground while you're pulling this knee back. And we're just keeping these feet flexed, pulling as far back as you can go, and release. And now we're going to do the same thing with our right leg. We're just going to pull it up, interlace those fingers, and pull. Make sure those feet are flexed. Pulling these right outside your rib cage as far as you can, and release. So fairly easy. We'll do that a couple of times. Twice on each side. Just pull it back nice and tight. You're going to really feel this stretch on the inside of your hips. And it's really going to help to open those hips up. The hips are something we don't stretch very often in our day-to-day goings on. And that's why they become so brittle and whatnot as we age. We got to make sure that we're doing these stretches. They're going to bring fresh blood to the area and just help keep us healthier in general. So once again, pulling that leg up, out around the outside of our rib cage, pulling it in, get those feet flexed, keep that feet on the floor, and relax. And that was wind removing pose. So for the rest of this series, we'll be starting each pose from Savasana, from corpse pose, just so that we're also getting a sit-up in every time that we're switching. So let's get in our Savasana pose if we aren't already there. Then what we're going to do is just reach our arms up behind our head so they're nice and straight. And we're going to do a nice sit-up. Reach forward towards your feet and grab your toes if you can. And just give a quick couple pumps as you come up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to flip over onto our stomach. And from here you're going to take your hands and you want to place them just right underneath your shoulders. And now legs should be together, feet pointed. And what we're going to do is we're going to squeeze up like a cobra, head back, looking towards the ceiling, heart out, chest up, and back down. And I'll do it from the front as well, just so you guys can see what it looks like straight on. So we're laid down, bring our hands up to our shoulders, and then we're gonna make sure those legs are together, feet pointed, and we're gonna squeeze up into cobra. Head up, chest out, and down. Awesome. Then we'll flip back over to Savasana and do another sit-up and do Cobra all over again. So for the next pose we're going to do, it's going to be called Locust Pose. So we're going to start from Savasana. So we'll start from our backs. Stretch those arms back above our head. Do a nice sit-up and push forward. Beautiful. Now we're going to flip over onto our stomach. Now, just as a disclaimer before we do this exercise, this is going to stretch our elbows, the inside and outside of our elbows. We're going to be placing our arms underneath us and putting a lot of pressure on these joints. If at any point it feels painful, I would recommend stopping. We don't normally stretch this in everyday life, so for a lot of people this is going to feel really uncomfortable, but it's great about getting blood flow into these joints and stretching something that we don't normally stretch on an everyday basis. But if at any point it is uncomfortable, you can always do your hands on the outside of yourself instead of inside underneath you. I'll show you both ways. So now that we've turned over onto our stomach, we're going to take our hands. We want them to be palm down. So I'm just going to roll under so you can see. I'm going to put this palm down, roll back on top of my arm. We're going to scoot the other one from the other side underneath as well. Now that I have my hands palm down underneath, we're going to lift the right leg and we're going to hold that, making sure that you want that hip to still be in contact with that elbow, but we're just lifting that leg up as much as we can. We're going to do the same thing with the other leg and lift up making sure that hip is staying on that elbow, lifting it up as high as we can, and bringing it down. Then we'll just pop those elbows out and flip back over to Savasana to do the second set. Now, just so you can see it straight on as well, so, let me scoot back a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to sneak these hands underneath. All right. And I'm going to lift that foot up, and it should be coming up right over my head. You don't want to kick back too far, or you'll be lifting that hip up off the elbow. We'll do the same thing with the other. Now, like I said before, if you want just your hands out to the side, that's something you can definitely do as well. You'll still feel the stretch in your legs, but we won't be getting that stretch in those elbows. So the next pose we're going to do is full locust pose. So once again, we're going to start in our Savasana. All right, arms up above the head and lift. All right, now we're going to flip back over onto our stomach. So very similar to the locust pose we did before, except this time our arms are going to be coming up and out behind us. Some people like to call this the Superman. That's what we called it when I was in track in high school. But we're going to call it the full locust pose. So we're just going to put those arms behind us. And what we're going to do is we're really going to squeeze that back so that you just want to be balancing just on your hips and the middle of your stomach. You've got that hip back, chest up, head forward, legs pointed, and relax. All right, and I'll just show you from straight on what that should look like. All right. So we're laying down, feet pointed, arms out beside us, and then we're gonna lift. All right, lift, 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 and relax. Make sure that you're really squeezing that butt and reaching those arms back so that you're really feeling the squeeze in these muscles here and in your butt. You want to make sure you're really squeezing so that we're getting the most we can out of that stretch. And that is full locust pose. So the next pose we're going to be doing is bow pose. So once again, starting in our Savasana. All right. Put our hands up over our head and sit up. All right. Okay, we're going to flip over again to our stomach. So this is going to be kind of similar to the locust pose. We're going to be laying flat on our stomach, and what we're going to do is reach those hands back, but instead of just floating here, we're going to grab on to these back feet. I like to grab my first two toes or the full foot, whatever feels more comfortable to you. Once we're here, what we're going to do is we're going to kick our feet into our hands, and once again we're going to try and balance on just those hips and the upper part of our stomach. So make sure we've got our head back, shoulders back, nice kick in the toes, and kick. And you're kicking, 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 and down. And I'll just show you what that looks like. Head on. All right, so we're on our stomach. Reaching our arms back, putting those feet into our hands, and then we're gonna kick, 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 and relax. Whew. You can really feel that one in your shoulders and your lower back. Oh, it feels so good. I love bow pose. So the next pose that we're going to do is going to be the fixed firm pose. So once again, starting from Savasana, bring our hands up over our head and up, reach forward. Okay, so what we're going to start off in the middle or probably closer to the front of our mat And we're just going to sit back on our legs and let's move those heels kind of out to the side and sit down in between those heels. This stretch is really going to work on our quads, but some people who do have bad knees, I know, have an issue with this stretch. You can continue to stay in Savasana if you'd like, or you could do Happy Baby, which I can show you as well. But for those of us who are flexible enough, we're going to sit down in between our heels here, and you're just going to bring your hands backward to your mat, and we're going to lay back down in between those heels. And now if you can, with your hands, put them over your head and just grab the opposite elbows, and we're just going to relax into the stretch, trying to get that back flat up against the floor, keeping those knees on the mat, and relax. Once we're all done with the stretch, we've sat for our 8 seconds, then we're just going to walk ourselves back up onto our hands, and we'll get back into Savasana to do it all over again, but I'll show it to you straight on just so you can kind of see. So we've got those knees together, we sit back, we're just going to push those feet out and sit into those hips, and then we're going to take those hands back and lean back, and then arms crossed. And then I'll show it to you from the back as well, just so you can see every part of the stretch in case you can't understand. So we're going to sit in between those feet next to those hips. We're going to walk it on back and then just put those arms back behind us, hold on to those elbows, and relax into the stretch. All right, and that is fixed firm pose. But like I said before, if you couldn't do that pose because of your knees, you can always do Happy Baby instead. So with that one, you'll be laying on your back. And just like how a baby grabs their feet and plays with their feet, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to hold our feet up into the air, reach onto our feet and pull them out to the side and just kind of rock. Now, if you can't grab your feet, if you want to just grab your knees, pull your knees towards your chest, that's something you can do as well. Or you can do this stretch and just rock. So like I said, if you can't do the fixed firm pose because of knees or flexibility issues, you could definitely do Happy Baby instead. Awesome, and that was fixed firm pose. So the next pose that we're going to do is going to be the half tortoise pose. So once again, we'll start in our Savasana. All right, hands back, and up, forward. Awesome. So we're just going to scoot to one end of our mat, and we're going to sit on top of our feet. Next, what we're going to do, we're going to clasp our hands together, doing our little finger guns. We're going to put those biceps right up against our ears. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reach up and stretch forward and then hinge forward at the hips until we bring those fingers to the mat. Make sure you're keeping your butt up against your feet. Make sure you're not coming up to try and reach those hands down. We want to stay nice and in contact with our hips to our feet. Now the next step is to try and continue to reach forward and get as flat as you can up against the mat. Hopefully one day getting your forehead to the mat. And then we're just going to lift back up and down. And I'll show it to you from straight on just so that you can see. So we're going to sit on our feet, bring those hands together, finger guns out, biceps around our ears, and reach up and hinge forward, forward, forward till we have those hands on the ground. We've got that butt against our feet, and we're just reaching forward, 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 trying to get that forehead to the mat. and back up. And that is half tortoise. So the next pose we're going to be doing is rabbit pose. So we're going to get into our Savasana. All right, arms above our head and up. Reach forward. Now we're going to start this pose kind of in the same way we started the last one. Middle of our mat, on our knees. Then what we're going to do is reach back and grab our heels. And then you're going to want to place your forehead as close to your knees as you possibly can. Then next what we're going to do is lift these hips up. And I'm going to be rolling my head and neck under. And the whole goal is to try and get these legs completely straight with my head still touching the knees. So I'll just show you here. And lift. You really feel this stretch in your neck. Your shoulder blades and down through the middle of your back. It's a really, really nice stretch. Just make sure that when we're doing the stretch, we're not just letting all the weight sit on our head. Every part of this stretch should be very controlled. If you're just resting all your weight on your neck, it can actually be more detrimental than positive. So very careful here. Let me just show you straight on kind of how that looks. So we reach back, tuck our head, and bring these hips forward. All right. And that was rabbit pose. So the next pose that we're going to do is sitting head to knee pose. So once again, we'll start in Savasana. Arms back. Sit up and forward. All right, so we're going to get to the middle of our mat. Leave one foot out. Bring one foot in. And what we're going to do is interlock our fingers with our little finger guns up by our ears. And we're going to breathe up and stretch forward, hinging at the hips. And if you can grab your toes, go ahead and lock your fingers. If you can't grab your toes, not a problem. Just continue through the rest of the stretch, reaching as far as you can. If you are able to lock those fingers in, what you'll want to do next is then straighten that knee out. And then we're going to bend those elbows forward and bring that forehead to that knee, nice and straight. Awesome. And then we'll come back up. Beautiful. We'll do the same thing for the other side. All right, and finger guns, arms up, and lift, breathe in, lift up, and hinge. All right, and I'll straighten that leg, and let's curl that head down, and up. All right, and that was sitting head to knee pose. So the last pose that we're going to do is going to be the seated twist pose. So let's get into our Savasana. Awesome. We'll put our hands up above our head and sit up, lean forward. Perfect. So we can pretty much stay here to start the exercise. I'm just going to bend those knees in and make sure I have those arms back behind me. So we'll start with getting all of our feet into place. So first we'll start by taking our right foot and placing it underneath our left. Then we're going to pick up our left foot and place it on the outside of our right leg, of our right knee. Then we'll take our right arm and place it on the outside of our left leg, and we're officially a pretzel. And we're going to keep this arm nice and straight. We're going to reach this hand back, and we're just going to turn our head and look as far back as we can. You're really going to feel this stretch in your hip here, as well as your shoulder blade. And we're just going to hold that for our 8 seconds, and then we'll do the other side, just so that you can kind of see it straight on. So we're going to take our left foot, place it underneath our right, pick up our right foot, place it on the outside of our right knee, take our left hand, place it on the outside of our right knee. We're going to keep that hand nice and straight, and then we're just going to reach this hand back and look and stretch all the way through. Awesome. Turning back. Now, if there's any point in this stretch that you can't move on to the next step, wherever you stop is totally fine as long as you're holding that stretch and trying to push yourself to the next position. So say, for example, you can only get this here and it's really hard for you to get your leg over top. Make sure we're just working to get as close as we can, just trying to get as much out of the stretch as possible. There's one more exercise left. It's not really a pose, it's a breathing exercise. It's a really nice way to kind of let out any leftover tension that we have left in our bodies. And afterwards, it's going to be a really nice release to just be able to lay in Savasana and really take in the entire practice. So let's get to it. So the very last exercise we're going to do is a breathing exercise. What it's really going to focus on is using our abdominals to push the air out of our lungs. So let's get started. So we'll sit up from our Savasana, hands above our head, and sit up, reach forward. Awesome. So for this practice, some people choose to be sitting with their legs crossed. Some people prefer to be on their knees. Totally up to you. I like to be on my knees. It's more comfortable for me. I don't know. I don't like sitting with my legs crossed. But like I said, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And then what we're going to be doing is taking a nice long 3-second inhale. And we're going to do a quick, short exhale using our abdomen to push that air out of our lungs. So let me just show you, for example, it's going to be... So now if you can watch my abdomen when I do it, it's going to be... Now you're not using your chest to fill up, we're not like dancing or anything. Really just need to be focusing on that abdomen, doing that nice 3-second inhale and quick exhale. So I'll show you again before we do it all together. And so once you can get that started and kind of get your rhythm down, I like to do it for about a minute. So if you can always set a timer if that helps. As you get better at the breathing exercise, you'll be able to do shorter inhales that do just as much as that 3-second inhale. I still can't go very quick yet. It's something you need to be very consistent with to get good at. But there's benefits no matter how slow you do it. It helps with your metabolism, your liver, your kidneys, mental health. It's crazy how much just watching and changing our breath, how good that can be for us. So let's go ahead and we'll do it together, and we'll just do 5 inhales and 5 quick exhales, but I'll count them for you. So let's go ahead and inhale, 1, 2, 3, quick exhale. 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 Last 1, 2, 3, exhale. Now that you've kind of got the feel for it, if you think that you can go faster, by all means do. The whole point of this exercise is to push yourself to your limit and do as much of it as you can. So if you feel like you can go faster while still doing the exercise correctly, please do. And once you're all done with your breathing exercise, feel free to lay in Savasana on your mat. All right. Hopefully by now you're laid down in your Savasana, nice and flat on your back. We're going to let those feet just fall open, nice and relaxed. Same thing with our arms, whether they're up to the sky, giving love, or down flat against the ground, receiving the love from the earth. We're just relaxing, and we're letting all of those muscles melt. Starting with our toes, wiggle those a little bit, get them nice and relaxed. Your feet are melting into your mat, and your calves, and your knees, and your thighs, melting into the floor, your lower back, your shoulder blades, your arms, your hands, completely relaxed, melting into the floor, your neck, your head. Your thoughts are quiet. We're reflecting on all of the good work we've done today. You are beautiful. You are strong. You are worthy of love. And you are important. Not just to me, but to your loved ones, and most importantly to yourself. We're melting into that floor. Really just relaxing because we deserve it. Just doing nice, slow breaths. Notice how your chest just rises and falls. The ambient noise outside, you can hear cars and birds and maybe people. But inside, we're nice and quiet. Our mind is quiet. Our heart is full. And I just want to say thank you for practicing with me today. And if you'd like to remain here with your eyes closed, please do so. But for me, this is it. Till next time.